Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Wait. Okay, now I can.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I was just doing some work for my real job and I was like, ah.
Here, there we go. I
Hi.
got a new phone and I hadn't put Zoom on it yet. So,
Oh, so little IT department right there.
yeah, always,
Yeah.
always.
How are you? It's so nice to meet you.
You too. I was just listening to a bunch of your podcasts this week. How
Oh,
many
great.
more do you have scheduled? It seems like you've been just a rolling them out.
I know it's for some reason, I don't know. It's this past month it's really taken off. Like I have three or two to record this weekend. So you today and then another girl tomorrow. And then I have a girl on Tuesday. So it's like, I think I'm pretty much set for the rest of the year, or at least till Christmas. So yeah,
Wow, that's
I
amazing.
know it's really exciting. It's kind of just seemed to hit to blow up. So it's awesome. But
Yeah, and
just
I
kind
really
of,
like that you're just doing everyone's perspective. Like you've had coaches, you've had people who have been diagnosed themselves. When I've listened to a lot of podcasts, I don't know if you've heard of DJ breast cancer, but there are
yeah.
a lot of podcasts out there that are just like very specific. But I think
Hmm.
what you're sharing is so important
Hmm.
because there's so many people out there that maybe they're not diagnosed, but it is a huge part of their whole life. Like it defines who they
Absolutely.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. Your case, it is like the perfect example. I
Yeah.
also, one of my very good friends, um, she has never been diagnosed with cancer, but she has a story for her stepmom, and so like we've been trying to sit down and record as well. So it's really great to have everybody's perspectives, and then also coaches and advocates. So it's just kind of like a wealth of knowledge and a resource center too. So thank you,
Yeah,
I appreciate
definitely.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's with I had thyroid cancer, so I was just like, I want to start a podcast, and I was like, I don't want it to be so specific where I kind of run out of either content, or it's just like you said, super niche, super specific, and it doesn't really connect with everybody. So
Hmm.
I'm really enjoying connecting with people and meeting awesome people. Like the cancer community is insanely welcoming and warm.
Yeah, it really is. And it's actually pretty tight knit too, you'll
Hmm.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Everybody
it's
seems to know everybody. It's kind of
I
nice.
know, I know. And I'm getting referrals from other people like that I've talked to. They're saying, "Oh, go talk to this person," and then I found you by listening to or seeing somebody post. So it's been a really really cool ride. I just started it in March, so just
Yeah.
the beginning of
It's really, really
quarantine.
good that it's so tight knit and you're
Yeah,
getting referrals
yeah.
because on Instagram and Facebook and just the internet in general, if you are not using like a .org or
Hmm.
something that's very, very well known and reputable and you're using the word cancer a lot, you just
Hmm.
kind of get flagged and
Hmm.
you don't get the views or
Yeah,
you don't get SEO for it. And
yeah,
so it's harder to make a name for yourself because
yeah.
you're not like the American Cancer Society.
Yeah, yeah, you're like on page 20 as opposed to page 1 of Google. So,
Exactly. And
yeah,
sometimes like Facebook, I know like they're cracking down on what is alternative wellness versus just information versus truth. And so it's getting harder and
yeah,
harder for people to even be seen. So it's
yeah.
really good that we all talk to each other and refer each
Yes.
other.
Yes. Word of mouth is like probably the best thing that's happened. Okay, I just got this new like microphone set. And I'm not quite sure what to do with it. I'm like, it's in my face. I don't know what to do. Hello. No,
Well, it
it's
sounds good.
okay, good. But it's interesting that you said like the SEO thing, because that's just something that I never thought about, that I would have to learn and have to know. And it's just this whole other monster to
Yeah.
try to figure out. I'm sure like working your website
Yeah,
and trying to
I
get
actually have a
clients.
background in marketing, which
Oh,
is kind of like
you're set.
where
Yeah.
I wouldn't say upset, but it really has been helpful to know, you can't talk about X, Y, and Z. And if you do, don't plan on getting any views for it. You're going to have people sharing it naturally and organically because everything is going to flag you as, you know, misinformation or spam or just
Yeah.
something crazy like that.
That is crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, so how are you? How's your day?
It's good. It's good. My hair's still wet, but we're here.
You know, it's so funny. I got out of the shower. Like I try to wash my hair like maybe like once a week, and it was wet, and I was like, maybe I'll just blow dry the front. So it's just like all wet in the back and like really dry in the front.
I got rid of mine. I
Oh,
got rid of
really?
my blow dryer.
I will
So
say I put heat on my hair like 4 times this year because of just
yeah.
not going
What is
anywhere.
even the point?
My hair has been so healthy. It's incredible. Like it just started growing like crazy. And I was like, oh, maybe that's the key.
Yeah. I had a really old one and I said, you know what, if I'm gonna use I feel like this thing's gonna blow.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna use heat, I should get a new one. And then I
Yeah.
just never got a new one.
That's fine. You know, one of mine, it didn't blow up, but every time I turned it on, it like sucked so much energy out of the house that it was just like all the lights would go. And it's
Was it old?
the dryer was. I was like, our house isn't
Yeah.
that old, but like I've blown fuses a few times with that dryer, so I just got rid of it. Yeah.
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 Time to evolve.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, did you have any questions before I guess we officially got started? I'm recording, but
Yeah, I figured.
yeah.
Do I sound okay and everything? I'm just
Yeah.
using my
Yeah, you sound
Apple
great. Yeah.
things. Yeah.
So sounds
I've
perfect.
done a few. I've actually done a few podcasts, but they were for marketing, not
Uh,
for this. But I did it with a different setup, so I wasn't
okay.
sure.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I have a few bullet points I want to make sure that I hit, so I'm just pulling those up real
Oh,
quick.
perfect. Yeah, no, that's good. I always have to sit down beforehand and write out just so I don't miss anything. Or I
Mm-hmm.
haven't had a situation where it's been like an awkward pause or anything. So I have
Yeah.
options just in case. But everybody that I met is just like, it just the hour goes by so fast. So
Oh,
it's
I
great. Yeah,
bet.
yeah.
There's, especially if you're, depending on where you're at in your journey, like how
Hmm.
can you tell your whole life story? Because
I
mine
know.
started when I was in elementary school
Oh my
is when mine
gosh.
started, and I'm 33 now. So it's like, how do you pack that into an hour?
I know. I know. It's impossible. And that's why I
Yeah.
always tell people, it's like, come back and we could talk about more. So yeah, there's always an option there.
Okay. Where are you located?
I'm in the LA area, Long Beach.
Oh, okay. I'm
What
just
about
in
you?
San Diego.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
For
actually
now.
for now.
Yeah.
Are
I
you
don't,
moving?
yeah, our lease is up in February, and
Okay.
I feel like everyone like there's so many people in Southern California at least that are just like out of here. I don't really know why or what the trend is, but I think we
Hmm.
might go to Austin, but I don't know.
That's awesome. I love Austin. But yeah, I feel like I think California is one of the number one states that are having, I guess, an exodus, if you will.
Yeah, that's what I've
So
heard, like the Great
yeah.
California Exodus.
Yeah, yeah, it's expensive. Like I can't afford to live here. The only reason that we're here is my husband, and he can afford to live here. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
about it. But
Same.
yeah. Oh my gosh, and you're in even more of an expensive area than we are. Like San Francisco area, like the Bay Area is crazy
Oh, we're in
expensive.
San Diego.
San Diego. Oh, sorry, I thought you said San
Yeah.
Francisco.
No,
That's
could
still
not.
expensive too. Oh my
We looked at it
gosh.
this time last year actually because my husband's family is up there, and
Okay.
I was like, I'm sorry, you want $4,000 for a room?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, that's not going to work. Yeah. San Diego's
No.
much better.
Yeah,
Much
much
better.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's closer to LA prices for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I am ready to get going
All
whenever you
right. All
are.
right. Perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to do a quick intro. I like cut and paste and all that stuff. But today we have for our 4th week of October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we have Whitney with us. And she is a cancer advocate, health coach. Oh my gosh, you're also a yogi. You're a yoga instructor. And she has a kind of a unique story with us. She personally has not had or been diagnosed with cancer, but she's going to be telling a story for her mother and her grandmother. So welcome to my Cancer Story podcast, Whitney. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
here.
so much for having me. I'm so
Oh,
happy to be here. I
oh
think
my
what you're
gosh.
doing is so important. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I help women who have a mother or a father. Typically, mother is who's gravitating towards me since that's my story. But I have I help women who have a parent with cancer navigate their parents' cancer diagnosis and the whole process. And that can be anywhere from, the beginning of the diagnosis to, sometimes women don't find me until after their parent has, left Earthside. So it varies with the women that I work with, but the story is all very similar. We all have a special bond that you can't explain it to anyone else unless you've went through that journey of having a parent with cancer or losing a parent with cancer. So I
Mhm.
help them navigate that entire process, and we do that all together. And one of the things that we really focus on is how to do that without losing yourself, because sometimes you spend, you know, 3 years or more focusing solely on caregiving and taking care of your loved one, and then they're gone. And you don't remember the last time you did anything for yourself or how to be yourself anymore. So it's
Mhm.
really important that we try to prepare for those moments. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of what I've done from the life experiences that I've had with taking care of my mom and my grandma.
Wow, what you're doing is so unique and so needed. I think a lot of people don't realize that a resource like you is out there and that they can, reach out for help for themselves as well as maybe for their loved one that they've been taking care of too. So I think what you're doing
Exactly.
is
That's
incredible.
why I
Hmm.
that's why I decided I needed to do that, because when
Hmm.
I was young, I didn't have any sort of resource. Hospice came and they had kind of like a social worker, but that was in the very end.
Hmm.
And my cancer journey with my mom started when I was in elementary school. And
You're just a
no, at
baby.
no point in that time did somebody reach out to me and give me any kind of resource that could have helped me even understand what was going on. My
Hmm.
mom was first diagnosed with skin cancer, and I was definitely in an elementary school, but I'm not sure what grade,
Okay.
probably above fourth, I want to say. And ever since I was younger, she always had this probably larger than a quarter size purple growth on her leg. And I remember
Oh.
looking up at her leg as like a toddler, like, you grab onto your mom's leg and you look up and you
Yeah.
see your mom, but I always remember seeing this purple growth and like touching it and feeling it. And I come from this family where it's not that common to be very proactive about your wellness or really care about your preventative health. And so she just let that thing grow and grow, and it was gigantic. For a purple spot being on your leg, it was definitely much larger than a quarter, and it was raised. And I never thought, what is that? I just knew that it was always there. And then
Yeah.
one day she sat me down and told me that, she went to get it checked out and she had skin cancer. But you don't even know the magnitude of what cancer can mean when you're
Hmm.
in elementary school. You just hear a word and you think, okay,
Yeah.
what does that mean? And so she had surgery, and still, through surgery, didn't really understand or grasp the
Hmm.
impact that that could have. And that was kind of where it began. And she was very, very fortunate that that growth on her thigh was easily removed through surgery. They took out
Hmm.
about half of her thigh, and her thigh was
Yeah.
curved for the rest of her life. It
Oh my
never grew back in like completely to make a normal thigh shape, but she was so fortunate she didn't need radiation, she didn't need chemo. They just took out giant margins from her thigh, and it was fine. And so that was kind of like my preview into cancer. But it was such a small thing that, she didn't need all of the treatments that a lot of people who are diagnosed with cancer need. So I
gosh.
still at that moment didn't understand, you know could she need chemo? I didn't even know what that was. I didn't understand where it could have went. She was so fortunate.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, I thought next time she was diagnosed with cancer, it would be just like the first time. But
Yeah.
it was so much different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When she was, I know you're saying like maybe like fourth grade, like as a kid, like you just don't know what much means anyway, because
exactly.
your life experience is like this much. So you're like cancer. I don't
Yeah.
really know what cancer is. Skin cancer. Okay. She's still my mom. It's
She's
great.
still my
Yeah.
mom. She had
Yeah.
surgery.
Okay.
She
We're going
had
back
these
to
like
normal. Yeah.
drain things hanging out of
Yeah.
her, and okay, can I go to my friend's house? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So
like,
that's just like next level that it started so young, but you still like you just weren't able to wrap your mind around it quite yet. So
exactly.
how
And now
long?
that I look back, I think, gosh, I was so inconsiderate, but
Well,
there
you
was no way I could
know,
have known, you
no,
know?
yeah. Oh my gosh, no, you're not inconsiderate. You're just being a kid.
Exactly, exactly. But it's just, you think back all the things you wish you would have did differently
Hmm.
had you had somebody like, myself who had been through it to say, hey, you may want to treasure this moment or you may want to do X, Y, or Z. But, that all those thoughts came much later.
Hmm.
So, my mom had that skin cancer, she had her surgery, and she was fine, no harm, no foul. Her leg looked different, and I didn't think much of it.
Yeah.
Fast forward to, I believe I was 15 when her next diagnosis happened, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And still at that time, okay, we did this before. I didn't think it would be anything.
Hmm.
And she wanted to, I think her first experience also tainted the reality of what a breast cancer diagnosis could mean for her.
Hmm.
So, she had such an quote unquote easy time with her skin cancer that she probably thought she would have such, breast cancer might be a breeze as well. I don't really
Yeah.
know if that's what she was thinking, but I think from how she handled her first breast cancer diagnosis, that she really didn't understand the magnitude just as much as I didn't understand it.
Hmm.
So she opted for a lumpectomy with no radiation and no chemo.
Was that on the
And
table? Sorry to interrupt you. Was that on the table, or she just chose not to do the radiation and the chemo?
I am unsure.
Oh, okay.
At that point, I was still, a young teenager, and I was unsure. But she wanted to change her diet, and she didn't think it was anything she needed to worry about too much. It
Hmm.
seemed like, and she could have just been playing the mom card for me, and making sure that I wasn't worried. And so that's what she opted to do, is just have a lumpectomy, and you know and see what happened.
Hmm.
And I think that was kind of the first mistake. Um, and I really truly believe that that stemmed from not having to have any other treatment when she had her first diagnosis. And so she did that. And within a year or so, it had spread to the other breast. Or no, it had spread into the first breast born. And so then she opted to have a mastectomy, which is great. I thought that was probably the best choice. And that was quite an interesting experience for us. I'm not her only daughter, but I was the only one that lived with her at the time. But I was still a selfish teenager, and I didn't understand what that could mean. And that's kind of an ongoing theme in my entire story with managing and dealing with her cancer, was not understanding. I'd never known anyone that had had cancer in
Yeah.
my lifetime, and I had never known, honestly, really anyone to pass away in my lifetime.
Hmm.
So it was very, I'm kind of just like living this life with these rose colored glasses on, and these things are happening, but I'm not understanding, and no one is explaining to me as a teenager what that can really mean.
Yeah.
Especially as a teenager, you're already living life so adventurous in a way that you think, you're unstoppable and nothing
Yeah.
can get you, that you're just out there doing whatever you want as a teen, and you aren't thinking that anything bad can happen to you. So of course you're not thinking that anything bad can happen to
Hmm.
your parent.
Yeah.
So it was just this running theme of nobody really sitting me down and saying, this is bad, and she could die. That was not said to me for a very, very, very long time,
Really.
almost probably until the last 2 years.
Wow.
And I think maybe people thought, oh, it's implied, but it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just assume that somebody knows something, and it's kind of like an unknowing ignorance that you have. Like, not saying it's a bad thing. It's just
Yeah.
you're a
You always
teenager.
think
Yeah.
everything's going to be okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she's your mom, and you
You're gonna
think,
live forever. Your parents are going to live forever. It's going to be great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You don't think they're not going to be there when you get married or when you have the
Yeah.
first child. Like, you never think about that.
Hmm.
But it's something that, I talk with many of the women that I work with. It's not bad to think about those things. It doesn't make you a bad person. You're not wishing harm upon your mother at all. You're thinking, this could happen. So how can I make every second count? And, I remind women, when you're together, take pictures, because I didn't do that much. And it was a different time, like
Yeah.
cell phones weren't as nice as
Yeah.
they were. And,
We didn't have
we
the
were still like,
smartphones.
I think when I was 21 and we were going to take pictures in the club, we were taking like our digital cameras with us. Like,
Yeah.
we weren't using our phones. So it was
Yeah.
just
I totally
a
had
different
disposables.
time. Exactly. Exactly. So it wasn't like, now taking a picture is more on our mind, but also when
Mhm.
you're so wrapped up in the caregiving and the medical, you're not thinking about taking those pictures or getting birthday cards for your future grandchildren or anything like that. But
Yeah.
that's really things that we talk about. And um, oftentimes they'll say, I would have never thought to take those pictures, but thank you so much for telling me, because now I have them. And sometimes I'll notice what happens, and I don't know if you've heard this a lot from the people that you have spoke with, but when you're on your way to finish up your time on earth, you kind of have this like last rally, and you can be doing really, really down in the dumps, you're feeling horrible, but something in your body and your mind changes, and like you have this like week or so period of this like last rally, this last
Yeah.
hurrah. And a lot of people in your family think, oh, they're doing great,
Yeah.
they're going to be fine, they're doing great. But I know, because of the people that I've worked with and how many times I've seen this happen, when that's happening. And that's usually when I don't say to them, this is the last rally, but I
Hmm.
will say, you should, have her sign cards and have her, take a picture of you guys holding hands. Or there's also these really cool molds that you can get where you put your hands in holding, and then
Yeah.
you like pull it out and it's like a porcelain mold.
Yeah. I've seen those.
And yeah, and so there's a lot of really cool things like that that you can do that are a bonding experience that feels special, that you just have forever. And
Hmm.
it's usually during that period that I can say, I know when it's happening, and I tell them, you should do this, or you should do this, and just give them a list of things that they can do to
Hmm.
bond with their loved one. And then, unfortunately, usually the next week or two, things tend to go downward.
Yeah.
And they need to start, they're unable to do those things. So
Hmm.
I feel like it's very much my job to make sure that they have those special moments, and that they take the time to have things that they can have forever and show their kids, because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Nobody did that for me, and there are a lot of things that I wish that I had.
Hmm.
um, there was one hospice nurse, who was really great, and um, she had my mom writing cards for my sister and I, just like what she was thankful for about us and what she loved about us. And then my mom had passed away before she could finish them. And so the hospice nurse came over to my sister's house and said, do you have an old card from your mom? And she was like, yeah, why? That's a strange request. And
Yeah.
she said, can I just borrow it? And then she went and typed up the notes. And then she went and got a photocopy of the love mom part on my sister's card. And she signed these printouts that we both have with
Oh,
my mom's actual signature, even though she had already passed. And it
yeah.
was just such a special gift. And once that happened, I realized, I just need this like ongoing list of all the things that people can do in
Yeah.
order to have that special moment, because, she had passed away, but I still had this card that was given to me days later, and it felt like she was still there. And it was just a really beautiful moment. And
Yeah.
there's so many things like that that you can do to just keep her living, and
Yeah.
I learned a lot, especially, I was 22 when she passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I hadn't gotten married yet, I didn't have kids, I was still, very much a young woman, and growing into myself. And so I had to get married without her there. And so we figured out ways to honor her and make it feel like she was there with us. And there's just a lot that can get forgotten unless you have someone there helping you through, and you really start to feel lost without that guidance. And so it's really important to know you're not the only one that's going through this. You know, there are plenty of women out there who have lost a parent or who have a parent with a metastatic disease who will be fighting it for years to come. And one of the things that I teach those women is it's not always, you know, a lot of times we hear cancer and we think this is this is it, you know, my parent has cancer, they're going to die, or they immediately go into a really negative place. But I don't know if you've seen in the cancer community, a lot of the messaging now is cancer can be a very manageable disease. And, you know, a lot of people manage it like like diabetes, or say someone who needs to go in and get dialysis all the time. You may be on a very low dose of chemo for the rest of your life, but your life may be 20 plus years now because of where medicine is at.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we need help getting ourselves out of the mindset that, oh, my parent has cancer, they're gonna die. That doesn't always mean the truth. And so we need help, you know, just seeing the light and knowing that it can be manageable.
Yeah. Cancer, definitely, like the word is flippin' scary. And it's just like,
terrifying.
it's just all of a sudden like this exclamation point or this period, cancer, boom. And you make a really good point that it's just there's so many degrees, it's a full spectrum of what it can mean. It can mean like something like my experience where they found it on my thyroid and we pulled it out and my blood work looks really good. So, or it could be, you know, like you're in stage 4 lymphoma, or, you know, like it doesn't have to be a death sentence, like you're saying.
It really doesn't.
And I think you educating people on that is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah. My best friend's mother, who basically turned into like a mother of mine, you know, I've known this family for over 15 years. And just over the past few years, she was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And it really, really was hard for me for a moment. But, you know, they say, you know, you never want to get cancer, but that's that's the one you want to get. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. And it probably is infuriating to you because it's like, you just never want to get it. But it was really eye-opening to me because, you know, you do have that moment of, okay, this is it. Like, this is it. What are we going to do? But it's so important to know that just because somebody has cancer doesn't mean they're going to die, and you should never treat them like they're going to die just because they have cancer, because everybody can tell that that's how they're being treated. And it doesn't feel well.
No.
You're like, no, I know from experience.
People looked at me. I kept it pretty under wraps for a while, and people, like, when they found out, it was just like this really big look of pity, like I was going to die. I was like, don't look at me like that. I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. And it's definitely, it's kind of crazy. But it's definitely a unique experience to have those reactions from people. With your friend's mom being diagnosed with thyroid cancer, did a lot of emotions come back? Was it almost like a for lack of a better term, PTSD, like for, you know, a whole bunch of emotions coming back from when your mother passed from cancer?
I think initially, you know, for maybe a week, there was definitely a lot of emotions, but I wasn't that educated on thyroid cancer at the time. And so, you know, I made sure that I got as educated as I possibly could on that. And then I really felt much better about it. And, you know, they're here in the same city as I am. And so it was okay. You know, I was there after her surgery, I believe, or prior to her surgery, or both. I can't remember it now. It's all kind of a blur. But, you know, we're all very close and we're like family. And it felt good to be in a more mature headspace when that was happening versus your younger 20s, which I think is much harder. And for the most part, all of their daughters are not necessarily that young. So I think, you know, we were all in a better place and we were all here together. So it worked out. But speaking of education, you know, getting educated on that, that's one of the things that I really work with the women that I work with is, you know, I'm sure you felt this way. I don't know if you work in the medical field at all, but when you
Oh,
get diagnosed with cancer,
yeah.
you go in and it's like people are speaking a different language to you in
Yeah.
the hospital. You're
Yeah.
like, I need what? What
If
are
you
you
don't
talking
know
about?
medical terminology, you're totally lost. I
Yeah.
luckily have like a sports medicine background, so I was like, okay, I know what you're saying, makes sense. But yeah, like the average person just doesn't know, and it's kind of all a blur. Like it's
Yeah,
almost
because you're
like the
still
Charlie.
trying
Yeah,
to digest what's even
yeah,
happening.
yeah.
And then they're like, we're going to do X, Y, Z, da, da, da,
Hmm.
da, da. And you're like,
Hmm.
say what?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so one of the first things I do when I'm working with women who parents just have that diagnosis or they're early on in it is I have a free resource guide that's just here are all the medical terms under the sun
Wow.
you could possibly need. Print this out, take it with you, and
Hmm.
talk about it on the ride home. Make sure you really understand, because a lot of times you're just nodding and saying okay, and
Hmm.
then you get in the car and you're like, well, I guess they're going to do this, but I don't know why, and I don't really know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can be very intimidating, and it's
Hmm.
important that we work with someone to educate you and your family on what's happening, and whether that's a cancer coach, which I know you've had some on your
Hmm.
podcast before, or something like a patient advocate, which
Hmm.
some hospitals have, not all of them. I wish that they all did.
Yeah. I
But
think it's
I think
necessary.
it's really important that we educate ourselves to make sure that we can advocate for ourselves and our family, because sometimes they're just going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's some not so great doctors out there, but there's some
Hmm.
really good doctors out there. I myself am a high risk woman because my mother had breast cancer. My grandmother passed away from breast cancer. And so I'm considered high risk. So I have a lot of experience just being a 33-year-old woman with
Hmm.
going and getting my breast checked out way more than most people who are in their late 20s.
Yeah.
And I had to get really educated.
Hmm.
I had to make sure I knew what they were talking about. And I went and did cancer genetic counseling to really find out what my risks were, because I can change my lifestyle. I can change my level of activity. I can change what I'm eating. I can change my mindset, but I can't change my genetics.
Hmm.
And it was really important to me to know, what is my risk factor? Am I going to be the third generation with this diagnosis?
Yeah.
And if it's very likely, I have to do everything in my power to prevent it.
Yeah.
And I found out originally that I had a 35% risk factor, which, if you're unaware of how they do that, the scale basically only goes up to like 40 or 45,
Oh
I believe.
shit. Oh God.
Yeah.
I was thinking a
So
100-point scale. I was like, okay. No.
yeah,
So
that's what I thought
I'm not
too. And they
educated on
had to
that
make
too.
sure that they corrected me.
Yeah.
And so the scale actually, I don't know why it's like that.
Yeah.
It's
That's
very
interesting.
counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Makes you feel like you need to celebrate when you don't.
Yeah. Mm.
And so I was considered very high risk. And in my late 20s, my genetics counselor suggested that I get on a drug called tamoxifen,
Okay.
which is typically given to women who are high risk for breast cancer or who have had breast cancer. And it's like a chemo prevention drug. So
Okay.
it's doing everything it can to help prevent you from getting cancer. But
Okay.
in the process, it's going to kick you into menopause, make you feel all sorts of hormonal ways.
Oh,
And
good.
it's just going to be this drug that you take for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s. I
Yeah.
hadn't even thought about having children yet.
Yeah.
And had I decided to take this drug, I would have, had to freeze my eggs and go into menopause as a 20-something-year-old. And I was like, okay, like I really need to get educated on this. Like, is this really what I want for me? How are my risks really what they're saying they are?
Hmm.
So, this is why it's so important to get a second opinion. So I
Hmm.
went to a different genetics counselor in a different state, and I think they do have a little bit better knowledge and equipment and everything in this state compared to where I was before. I was in Utah prior, and now
Okay.
I'm in Southern California. So I got a second opinion once I got here. And they said my risk was only 30. And you think, well, 30 and 35, that doesn't sound much different. But they said
Mm.
it's actually dramatically different. And they would
Oh,
not recommend that I get on the tamoxifen. So that was really, really eye opening to me. And it just shows how important it is. Like, even if you really like your doctor, just
mm-hmm.
get a second opinion, get a second, get a third opinion if you can, because
Mm-hmm.
whether you're dealing with a cancer diagnosis or anything else, your treatment options, there could be other things out there for you that are going to be way more comfortable for your lifestyle and, just living better in general. So I was so relieved when I got that, and I continue to do my research to make sure it's still the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
And every year, I'm still very young, but every year I get a breast ultrasound and a mammogram. And, there have been years when I've had scares and I've had to get biopsies,
Yeah.
which no one this young should have to be worrying about. But if I'm not, who is?
Yeah.
It's really important to understand your risks and get as educated as possible. And if you are high risk, get educated on learning how to live a preventative lifestyle. Because again, you can't control your genetics, but you can control so many other things that, attribute
Mm-hmm.
to your cancer risks, and you can change
Mm-hmm.
how you're living.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I really preach, because it's always in the back of my head. It's always something that I'm going to have to worry about, because I do have those um, genetics, and I also have other mutations that are not, I don't have the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, but I do have other mutations that they worry may lead to cancer at some point. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I'm always talking about and I'm always worrying about, but I'd rather worry and be proactive than just sit and worry and
Sit
sweep it
back.
under the rug.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
You
let
have the
me tell
control.
you, that is something that is not in my blood. From the
Good.
beginning of this, we were talking about my mom and her, purple growth on her leg that she had practically her entire life.
Yeah.
And that's how my family is.
Yeah.
I come from a very large family. My grandmother had 15 children, I believe, 14 or
Oh,
15.
oh my gosh. Woo, fertile myrtle. All right.
I know, I know, I know. So, um, but all of them, every woman in that family is, we'll just sweep
Yep.
everything under the rug
Bury your
until
heads in
it
the
comes
sand.
boiling
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And so it is like every year I know I have to go do these checkups, and I know I need to stay on top of it, but sometimes it is like fighting tooth and nail with something inside of me. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you're fine. You're fine. And they say, you're fine. You're young, blah, blah, blah. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, the year I don't, that'll be the year
Yep.
it gets me.
Murphy's Law. That's totally it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Every time.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you spoke on the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene mutation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that did both your mother and your grandmother have that genetic mutation or that expression? Do you know?
So no, I
Yeah.
don't know. That
Yeah.
that goes more into the sweeping everything under the
Okay.
rug. So with my mom, they didn't do any. They didn't test for the BRCA genes, but we do
Hmm.
know that hers, if I remember correctly, is non-hormone receptive.
Okay.
So that's huge. So that does give me some information there to work with.
Hmm.
However, with my grandmother, oh, my genes, let me just tell you. Um, so, as my mom was going through the hardest part of her cancer, and, she had been at home on hospice, and, we're working through all of that. It had metastasized through her lungs, her brain, her bones,
Yeah.
and this was all through the holiday season that we, learned that it had gotten this far. And apparently, while this was happening, my grandmother had breast cancer, and she didn't tell anyone. She didn't want to get it checked out. She didn't want to go to the doctor. So, she had this huge family of anyone who would have taken her, cared for her,
Hmm.
but she didn't want to be a burden. And I think she saw everything that her youngest daughter was going through,
Hmm.
and she didn't want to go through that herself. And so she probably just had this mentality of, if she didn't talk about it, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And after my mom passed away, about 2 years later, I believe, um, she, contacted us all, and she had had, by that point in time, the cancer was open, gaping wounds on her breasts.
Oh my God.
And so she let it go and swept it under the rug and swept it under the rug until it
Oh my God.
physically was bursting out.
Oh my
And
God.
so nobody knew that she was in pain. Nobody knew that she was suffering. And she had this giant family, of children that would have loved to help her and take care of her. And it was probably only a few weeks later that she passed away. And it's just very, very, very interesting. My doctors always ask me, do you have other family members with a history of cancer? And I say, I really don't know. And
I
it
know
shouldn't be
too.
funny.
No, I know
It
it shouldn't.
shouldn't be funny, but it's just,
Oh,
well, you don't really understand who I'm working with
oh
here.
my God. Oh, seriously. I'm gonna have to hound your whole extended family. Like, all right, seriously, you gotta tell me.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it's interesting. I have celiac disease, and I always tell them,
Hmm.
has anybody else gotten checked out? You may have these stomach issues, or
Yeah.
you may be bloated because you have celiac disease. I have both the genes; they got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
No, nobody cares.
Oh my
everybody wants to
gosh.
keep everybody wants to keep eating their meat. They don't care if
Oh
they feel
man.
bloated or sick. They want
Oh,
their cake. They
oh
want their
God.
bread. I
Oh,
get it, but it's comical. It's all I
oh
can do is
man.
laugh about it.
I know sometimes you just have to, but it's interesting. I know, like you're saying, it's kind of like bred in your family to, not address things and kind of just bury their heads in the sand. But I also think a lot of it is it's kind of like almost like a female trait to downplay things and not want to ask
Oh,
for help and
completely.
not want to burden other people, family members, friends with their problems or illnesses or anything like that. Do you find that with like some of the clients, the young women that you work with their families and everything like that, like having to work with
A-
them on that? Yeah.
Absolutely. I will have, I had a client recently who, she was having some medical issues, and her mom was on her way out, and still, to the very end, it was, just, don't worry about me, take care of yourself, do this, do that, and just could
Mm,
not accept, you know, true loving care from her daughter, because she was still trying to just be the mom
yeah.
as much as she could, and, shelter her from everything, which is so beautiful that, you could be in so much pain that you're still trying to do that. But at the same time, like, we as daughters, it's hard to get to a point where you are being the parent for your parent, but
Hmm.
we want to just as bad as you want to take care of us. We
Hmm.
want to love you, and it becomes this battle of
Yeah.
each of you trying to sweep things under the rug, and you're too
Yeah.
concerned about the other that you're not really
Yeah.
taking care of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like kind of like a double negative. Like nobody's getting taken care
Exactly.
of. Yeah. Um,
Exactly. So it makes for some very, you know the amount of times that we laugh in the calls that I take with my clients, you wouldn't know that we're talking about what we're talking about,
yeah.
because you have to find humor in it. And the relationship that daughters have with their mothers is unlike any other relationship, whether you're close with them or whether you're distant with them. There's always this funny dynamic that you guys have, this humor that only the two of you can understand.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting getting to know all these moms, these extended moms that, I have, that we all share this like funny humor of this mother daughter banter that only mothers and daughters get, because it's just like a mother daughter banter situation. And so, you could walk by my door and hear me talking to these clients, and I'm just cracking up, and you wouldn't realize that we're in here talking about such a serious conversation, and sometimes even end of life. But it's important that you can find, those moments that still, you can find a release and laughter through.
Yeah. It sounds so cliche, but laughter really is uh, the best medicine sometimes. It can put you on a different level and almost reset you too, but it doesn't always have to be so serious sometimes. And the fact that you're able to have that relationship and be on that level with your clients, and that they can have with their mothers or fathers is really incredible, and kind of rare. So you're also providing them an outlet that they can laugh, and that they can almost work on healing as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool. I don't know if I said that eloquently enough, but I think it's great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really true. We talk about what happens in the calls that I work with these women is, we start off just, shooting the shit and catching up.
Hmm.
And then we go into, well, tell me about your mother or father's cancer status, what's going on with them. And, we'll talk about the last week's doctor's appointments and, anything they don't understand. We may break down some medical terminology or procedures or things that they're having.
Hmm.
And that's just a nice release for them, just to talk about it with someone who understands, someone who's not trying to sympathy them or feel
Hmm.
pity or anything. Just talk about it with someone who just straight gets it.
Hmm.
And then after that, we'll talk about how that's making you feel and how you're handling it. And then the most important part of all of the calls with my clients is making sure that they're taking care of themselves. So at the end of every call, we usually set 3 goals. And one of them always, always, always is self-care. What are they doing for themselves? That can be anything from nutrition to movement to, just taking a shower, because sometimes that's one of the first thing that goes when you're taking care of someone is your self-care. And so I really do my best to hold them accountable to those 3 goals every week, because, you know, they really can tell the difference when they are doing them versus when, they let them fall by the wayside.
Hmm.
And sometimes if you don't have that person, helping you be held accountable, it's so easy to get lost in your caretaking. It's so easy to get lost in your loved one. And it's so easy to just avoidant behavior, whether that's scrolling on Instagram or, TikTok or whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
binging Netflix. It's so easy to just avoid, avoid, avoid. And the one thing we should never be avoiding is taking care of ourselves, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot adequately take care of that loved one. And they will be able to tell. Most people would be able to tell, but your mother will be able
Yeah.
to tell. She will know, and
Yeah.
she will call you out on it.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so important, like that you're providing your clients these tools that they might not actively know that
Mhm.
they're doing these mindless habits, scrolling through Instagram, watching Netflix, and not addressing, themselves, or dealing with inner issues that they may be having. And
Mhm.
I think that's really important, because especially in this society now, whether or not you're dealing with a, a crisis, whether or not you're dealing with cancer, it's so easy to just avoid. And there's so many bright and shiny things in front of you, and for you to set these goals and provide your clients with tools is so important. And the fact that you can see it and you address it and you enforce it is a big deal. And
It's
not
so
everybody has
important.
somebody to do that for them. And the fact that you're able to think of it and to apply it from your personal experiences and then move it forward, and almost like it's this ripple effect that you're providing for somebody else. And I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you. I think that, from my experience from starting so young and
Hmm.
not having the guidance to help me through it and, make things much more of a priority. Being a
Hmm.
teenager, I have a lot of regrets from my mother's cancer diagnosis.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important to let people know, your mother's not inferior, but you don't need to assume she's going to die, but know that, you may have regrets about this time. And I will share with them the things that I regret, and chances I didn't take, and time that I wish I had spent with my mother. And it's really important they see, a real person can have those regrets, and that, it's very eye-opening for them to maybe have a little bit more motivation to spend time with them, because a lot of times it is avoiding. Sometimes,
Hmm.
it's hard. It's really, really hard to see someone that you love going through that. to digress to, you know, my grandmother not telling any of us about her cancer, she also wouldn't go see my mother as she was dying. It was too hard for her. She
Oh,
wouldn't go
wow.
say goodbye.
Oh, God.
And you're going to have to deal with various family dynamics like that through this. You know, you're going to have uncles and aunts, and everyone's going to want to say in how they're being treated, and, you know, everyone's going to want to say in, you know, if they pass away, what happens to the money. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of family drama that comes along with these diagnoses.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you know what your parent wants, how to stand your ground, and how to navigate the family, because coming from a big one, it can be interesting.
I can only imagine. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, you have a lot of moments in life that are going to define what you do. And the two of mine were, you know, holding my mother's hand as she passed away and telling her that I was going to be okay. I didn't know if I was going to be okay. I didn't
Yeah.
even know what this meant. What was this going to feel like? But I had to be strong for her and tell her that she should let go.
Yeah.
And that is one of the hardest things a daughter can have to do. And then to have to do it a few years later and hold your grandmother's hand and tell her it's going to be okay. You know, to be in your young 20s and have to tell somebody who's so much wiser than you those things, it's a very difficult situation, but they're probably two of the most defining moments in my life. And they have opened my eyes up to wanting to learn about my health, my wellness, my preventative health,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that most women who are high risks aren't as proactive. And it's
Mm-hmm.
important to share that message as often as possible. That I always say cancer, you know, it's not something that should be muted. It's not something that we shouldn't talk about. It's something that everyone is going to have to deal with. You will know someone, or you will have someone in your family, or you will be someone. And there's no reason that we shouldn't openly talk about it. It shouldn't make people as uncomfortable as it does. And the end all be all of my story is to make people more comfortable talking about cancer, because it shouldn't be taboo. It's not.
1,000%. That was,
You
it's
know?
perfectly put. It's,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. You're,
Cancer's not taboo. No.
no, no, it shouldn't be. It's kind of like how mental health has slowly gone away from being
Oh,
taboo as well.
isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's come a long way.
And
So,
now it's like
yeah,
ads through every app. Like,
yeah,
need a therapist? Text
yeah.
this number. And I'm
That's
like, hell
cool.
yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's great. Let's do it. I think everybody should go to therapy. It's great.
I
Um,
agree.
so you provide like this really unique outlook and a sense of experience and essentially having to grow up a lot more quickly and be more mature than most 20-year-olds had to.
Hmm.
So investing in your own health and changing your habits, nutrition, self-care, body movement. How did how did how did you go about changing that? So I see now that you do yoga. I saw on your website that you're vegan and
Hmm.
obviously gluten free.
Yeah.
How did that process, I guess, get going for you? Like, did you change it all at once, or was it just a slow thing that you did through
No.
education? Okay.
It was
No, no, yeah.
definitely not all at once.
Okay.
I was open to the fact that I needed to do something and I needed to live better.
Mhm.
I grew up with a single mom, and we were raised on fettuccine alfredo, grilled cheese, and Diet Coke.
Delicious. I love grilled
And
cheese.
I'm not sure any of those things have any true nutritional value to them.
No.
And so I knew that I needed to change, um, you know, my past, and, you know, I needed to do better, because obviously my mother got skin cancer, and she had breast cancer, and then my grandmother. So somehow, you know, however they were raised, or however they raised me, was not, you know, it wasn't working for us. So we needed to
Yeah.
switch things up. Immediately I started, you know, diving into things, actually with my mother before she passed away, when she decided she wanted to change her diet
Oh.
before getting her mastectomy. You know, she taught me a lot of things that I didn't know. She taught me about drinking clean water, and getting away from tap water. And we had this guy who worked at this store called the Water Store, and he pretty much saw me grow up because we would go in every week to fill up our water, and he would just teach me a lot about water. And so ever since then, I don't even remember the last time I didn't have a water guy wherever I lived. And so
awesome.
it may sound very like hippie and progressive, don't drink the tap water, but don't.
Seriously, don't.
Seriously don't. And so, she opened my eyes to little by little things like that, but not enough to go vegan or anything at that time. We were raised, I'm Hispanic, so we were raised on a lot of cheese and a lot of high fat foods, which, there's nothing wrong with that to an extent, but I think it's really important to know how your body reacts to certain things. Mm-hmm. And I didn't actually get certified in nutrition until a few years ago. And it was all little by little leading up to that, finding out that I had celiac disease. Mm-hmm. That was a really defining moment. And wondering, my mom had stomach problems her whole life. I wonder if she had it too. And I wonder if her, inability to absorb nutrients, if she had it, contributed to her cancer. I had a lot of questions about that. And there are things I'll never know the answer to, unfortunately. But it's something that I can find the answer to within my own body, I'm not the typical age that someone would go and get a colonoscopy, but that is something I'm going to be doing very, very, very soon. Oh. And that's to find out, how much damage has celiac done to my digestive tract? Am I able to absorb nutrients as well? So I do everything I possibly can to be proactive, but it's all been this journey. As soon as she passed away, I started a blog, and my background is in marketing, and I've had some pretty demanding jobs where I've worked really crazy hours for international companies. And so I've never had the time to focus solely on nutrition until probably about 3 years ago. And that's really when I decided, okay, I'm going to get certified in nutrition. I'm going to get certified in yoga for cancer recovery. I'm really going to dive as far as I can into this and make it my whole world. Versus, 10 years leading up to that, I was extremely interested in it, but it was such minute little steps to lead me to where I am today, to really realize these are the women I want to help and these are the women I want to work with. I was doing broad nutrition and, just healthy eating before that. And now I'm really narrowing and niching down to, I need to talk to the women who were just like me and wishing they had all this advice. And we have the internet now and we can Google everything we want, but that's just another exhausting thing. Yeah. So it's really important to just have somebody in your corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. Like you said, it's kind of a long time coming, the process of being interested in it and to now where you are today and creating a wellness space. How did you create the website like 3 years ago, like around the time you did more of the nutrition certification?
I did. I created a wellness space with this vision, of helping these women. However, my long-term vision for a wellness space is to turn it into a nonprofit. And that's something I think, everyone who's listening should know. If you're a mother and you have a daughter who is struggling with your cancer diagnosis, or you just don't know how she's doing because she's not talking about it, send her my way. Every daughter that I work with, it's all completely free or donation based, because when I think back at that time, we came from a single parent home. We were not, super financially fit by any means. And this is not something that if I was in that position, someone said, you should pay for this service, I would not have been able to do it. And it would have helped me so much through the next 5 years of my life. And so I really made it a point to say to everybody, I am offering the service completely free to honor my younger self and my mother and my grandmother, to help you have a better life through their diagnosis and their entire journey. And it is my goal with a wellness space to have a team of women who have been through something similar to myself and, you know, turn it into a nonprofit and continue to help these women who may be younger. I actually have worked with a few daughters who have a parent who's in their 70s, and we still bonded just the same as we would have had they been younger, because it's such a similar story, such a similar bond of having a parent with cancer. It doesn't matter what age you are, you're still always a daughter, and you still always love your mother the same, no matter what age.
Yeah.
So, you know, long-term vision is having this nonprofit where women can come and they can talk to somebody who's been in their shoes and help guide them, in addition to working with women who are high risk like myself and helping them gain access to preventative care and understand their risks.
That's beautiful.
Thank
You're doing, I'm not really religious, but it's like almost like you're doing the Lord's work. You're like an angel. You're an angel. Oh my gosh. It's
you.
just taking your experience and paying it forward is such a selfless thing to do. And what you're doing is just making it a world of difference in so many, especially young women's lives. And I'm sure that's got to be extremely fulfilling for you too, to be able to help somebody that, you know, like you've seen your younger self and other women, to be able to
It
help
is.
them. Yeah.
It's been really cathartic and healing,
Yeah.
because you know, you think, oh, I wish I would have did this, when you're your smarter self and your mind isn't dealing with the grief or the heartache, you know, you think, oh, I wish I would have did this. But now I get to see so many other people do all the things I wish I would have done. And it's so fulfilling and heartwarming to just hear them, you know, tell me about their experiences and thank me, because they wouldn't have had that idea, or they never would have thought of it, because they're just not in the headspace.
Yeah.
But to just give them a little bit of extra time with their loved one, or a little bit of hope, or sometimes I'm like, you know, let me just research that for you. You know, you're questioning about this thing and you're freaking out because you don't have the time. Like, let me just take that off your back. It could be totally out of my space, but I'll just take it off their back so they can like take a bubble bath or something. Like, have some freaking time for yourself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Education's huge. And the fact that you're just willing to be a sponge and soak it all in, I think is a really great tool to have for yourself, as well as, you know, your clients that you work with. It's, you know, I always consider myself a constant learner, constant student. So, you know,
Same.
yeah. It's just like, if you can make your life better, other people's lives better through doing a little bit more research, do it. Absolutely. Don't bury your head in the sand. You're doing a great job. I think you broke the cycle for your family. You're doing it.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, I hope I won't be the third generation to be diagnosed, but if it comes to that, I will know I did everything in my power to not be. And sometimes you can't help the cards that you're dealt.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said something earlier. I know it's not like fully transition perfectly, but you said something, you do yoga for cancer healing or cancer
recovery.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I've never heard of it before.
Yeah. So a lot of people, you know, they get I'll use breast cancer, for example, since that's what I'm super familiar with.
Yeah.
You get out of surgery, you do your reconstructive surgery. Say you decide to have a double mastectomy, they take off both your breasts, and usually you'll have to go through like a session for expanders, and then you'll get your breast implants. But say you're all healed and you wait your 6 weeks and they say, okay, you know, you can start working out again. A lot of times you jump into what you did before, because you don't, you know, you go back to the place that makes you happy, and you're like, okay, this is a new body. This is not my body anymore. What is going on? Things are feeling like they're going to snap and feeling not right. And if you go to a regular yoga class, a lot of people, you know, they're not asking everybody, hi, welcome to class. Who has cancer? Like, nobody's saying that. And most likely, depending on how timid or shy or comfortable you are with the teacher, you're not walking in and saying, hey, I just had a double mastectomy, just so you know. You know, it's not that common. So I took a class to do a certification in yoga for those who are in recovery from cancer. And a lot of times that can mean, you know, up to two maybe years longer, because the body takes a long time to heal. And sometimes your body's just not ever going to be the same. And so we really dive into poses that are workable for every body type
Mm-hmm.
and poses that are not workable for like specifically breast cancer, stomach cancer, and we really know what to avoid and how to help people stretch and open up that scar tissue again, because sometimes the hardest thing can just be savasana, where you are laying on the floor, you're not doing anything, but just having your chest open that far. If you've had
Mm-hmm.
any sort of surgery, even not like a massive surgery, even like a biopsy, you can
Mm-hmm.
feel very, very vulnerable and very uncomfortable with just having your chest open.
Mm-hmm.
So, we may work with having your arms on your chest, having a blanket around you, a pillow, things that just help get you more comfortable in your new body and understanding how to work out with your new body, because it takes time.
Yeah.
And also, it's just a really, really nice place to have people to talk to in your community who have been through what you've been through.
That's awesome. Like I
Thank
said,
you.
I had never heard of that. Do you do or I guess maybe before COVID or even now, do you do classes? Do you have like a group
All
that
online.
all online? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. And it really identifies for a special population. It's just not like a recipe one size fits all mold going
Yeah,
to like a power yoga class, which, like destroys me anyway, but it's
exactly.
very
But if you loved that
individualized.
before, you don't know that
Yeah,
you don't
exactly. You're
know.
like, I can't do that. Holy crap. Yeah. So I think, oh, that's really cool. Um, I don't even know what time it is. Wow, it's been about an hour. All
It
right.
has been about an hour.
Yeah. Well, so it's kind of like the wrap up point. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any bullet points that you didn't hit, or any extra advice that you'd like to share with the listeners out there? And also, how can we find you?
Yeah, I just think it's really important that every single person on this planet deserves to feel, you know, physically and mentally well, no matter what. And we need to stop as a society thinking, oh, this has been hurting for this long and that's just the way that it is. Or I've always been this anxious, or I've always been X, Y, and Z. So that's how it's always going to be. Most
Mm-hmm.
of the time, there is an answer for why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And there's something that can go talk to a preventative healthcare worker about, you can talk to a health coach about,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a way to combat however you're feeling 9 out of 10 times. And I think it's important that just we as a society learn to put ourselves first and really do everything that we can to not sweep things under the rug. That was, a lot of things that we talked about throughout this
Yeah. A
conversation together.
common
So stop
theme.
thinking
Yeah.
sweeping things under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've just seen it and seen it and seen it, what it can do when you sweep things under the rug. And
Mm-hmm.
just don't, I've
Yeah.
I've had people reach out to me who, they think they found something, but they're just terrified to go. And I'm like, all right, I'll FaceTime me while you walk in, and we'll stay together. You can even put me on mute. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, just know that I'm there with you so that
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're alone. And I'll go through all the preventative health measures that I have had to do
Mm-hmm.
just up until 33,
Mm-hmm.
and just help you get through that fear of doing it. I'll tell you right now, I'm not happy that I have to go do a colonoscopy at 33. It
No.
does not sound amazing. It
Nope.
does not sound like birds and butterflies. Like, I do not want to do it at all, but I'm still going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the right things to do are the hardest things to do. And I think that's really
And
solid advice.
if you think that you are happier sweeping things under the rug, you're thinking about that thing every time you sweep it under the rug. And
Mm-hmm.
if you just went and got that thing checked out and had some guidance on how to either, get rid of it or eat better to fix it, or whatever the situation is, you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have that stress of sweeping it under the rug anymore. It's just not going to be there.
Yeah.
So why not make your life better?
Absolutely. 1,000%. That's perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great advice. Solid advice. So,
Yeah.
um, is there anything else you'd like to add? That was solid advice, but how can we find you? So
Yeah.
we found each other on Instagram. So
Yeah.
you're on Instagram, and then you also have this fantastic website. I had a chance to take a look at it and learn more about you.
Yeah. You can reach my website at awellnessspace.co. And then same thing on all social platforms at Wellness Space. I'm on all of them, but honestly, I probably use Instagram the most right now.
Mhm.
And then I also have a Facebook group called the Strong Daughters Collective. And you can search for that on Facebook or find the link in my Instagram bio. And it's just a group of daughters who have a parent with cancer diagnosis. And we talk about all different kinds of things in there. And it's a nice place to find community and have people who've been through it and going through just talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here again. Like you're just this wealth of knowledge and old soul for being only 33 years old. I love that we're able to chat and you to share your story as well as the evolution of how you got to a wellness space and where you are today. The fact that you're a, such a great resource and you're providing these tools for other individuals is is just so amazing. The fact that there is this available now in this world. So thank you for what you're doing. You're just gonna, you're killing it.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope, if anything, if you have a daughter who's struggling, send her my way. If you yourself are listening to this to understand more about your parents' diagnosis, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm a nice person. I swear I will respond, and we'll help get you through this unique journey that you're on.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, I am going to cut it off right here.
Okay.
Pause.